Over to you, Jill.
Hello, Mike.
Good morning.
Mike Gibb from Aberdeen.
Aberdeen, exactly. Bonnie Aberdeen, sunny, warm Aberdeen.
Yeah. Well, Doric TV / Doric Future is one of the aims that we do, and Mike, is to interview interesting people who do extraordinary things, to capture them and put them on a platform. It's to showcase who's who and who we are and what we do best in Aberdeenshire. Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask Mike, how would you, first of all, where are you from and how would you describe yourself, Mike?
I'm from Aberdeen, born right in the centre of town, last tenement, or second last tenement, I should be correct, before Pataudry, and lived here all my life. Worked in the business world till I was 50, took early retirement and began writing for the theatre and writing books. I've done that for more years than I'm willing to tell you now, because I've taught you already. I started when I was 50. Preferably anyway, let's put it that way.
It's a privilege to interview Mike, an author, not just a Scottish author, but somebody from the heart of Doric land, an author and playwright. Mike, now I'll show you this newspaper article. I mentioned to this, Mike, earlier that I saw you featured on the newspaper about a book that you had written, and I was highly fascinated about this book. Forgotten Heroines of the Northeast. It was really interesting to me, as somebody who's come from the Northeast, been here all my life, to know that we've had heroines in the past. They're not evident, but they've been there, and you've brought them forward in this book, Mike. Really excited about this book, Mike, and I'd just like you to just tell us a wee bit about how you got to write the book and about the brief description of the people, the ladies that you've mentioned in your book.
Okay, it goes back, if I start to describe, 20 years. I had written one Scottish, all my theatre pieces are in Scottish themes. That's the one thing I've always stuck by. I'd written one, and I was looking for a subject for the other one, and I read a biography of Mary Slessor, and found within a chapter I was completely captivated by this woman coming from the slums at the Edinburgh in Aberdeen through Dundee and going out and taking over in Nigeria and doing so much for that particular, for Calabar, for that part of the world where she's still revered. And yet there's very, very little known about Mary Slessor, and very little to recognise the fact she did come from Aberdeen. So that was at the starting point. And then many years later, I wrote a play called, with music called Aberdeen's Forgotten Diva, which we just actually recorded in the last few months, thanks to the Doric board. And it was based on the life of Mary Garden, who an opera singer from born again the centre of Aberdeen, who became worldwide famous. I mean, probably the most famous diva of her time in the 1920s, 1930s, became a film star. And yet, if you say anything Aberdeen about Mary Garden, or again, no, is that? Yeah, no, it's so that was the two that did that, and I just had felt all along that we were pretty poor in the Northeast, and Aberdeen in particular, in recognising these people. I'd also in the theatre world, I had adapted Doorways and Dramorte, which is a book written by stricken author and screenwriter Lorna Moon, and was fascinated by the whole amazing Lorna Moon story with going to Hollywood and so on. And I thought these were such interesting stories. Would there be a book in there? And so I started doing that. Found two other ladies, again from very different walks of life. Annie Murray came from Turfens and went out and nursed in the Spanish Civil War, which is something that always interested me as well. And a woman I knew nothing about called Maria Ogilvie Gordon, who came from Moneymusk and became, I call the chapter the First Lady, because she actually was the first lady to do so much in the world of science and geography, geology. And to this day, within about 3-4 years ago, Heriot-Watt University opened a brand new wing, and it's the Maria Ogilvie Gordon wing. And it really was amazing. And I just thought all these women took on, and we're generally talking about an era of more or less the 19th, early 20th century, which was very much a male-dominated world, and they took it on and achieved so much. And it was a really interesting thing to write. I mean, I I never really write anything unless I'm enjoying it. If I find I've started writing and I'm bored and I can't have a bother getting at it, then I abandon things. I've abandoned a lot along the way. But when I was doing this, I really was quite captivated by them all. And you know, the courage, the bravery, smedum, to use a word that came from Grasset Gibbon, of these women. And you know, I just felt that there was a book, and it's been very well received. We've done a reprint quite recently and so on, and it's still selling well. And I've been very lucky that a lot of the wee northeast bookshops, from Digers in the Broch and Better Red and Elwyn and Aiden's and Ballater Bookshop and several others besides, Aiden County Park, and it's now on sale in the Protestant Centre in Aberdeen, the Hall of Heroes, which was great because between it and the follow-up book, the Heroes book, I think there's 7 of the people in there are represented in the Hall of Heroes, and the Gordon Highlanders Museum and Arbuthnot and this on. So it's been great, and it has spread out, and I've had quite a lot of feedback, which you don't necessarily get. You've got to do a theatre piece, and folk will say to you on the way out. Hopefully they'll say to you on the way out, "Oh, I really enjoyed that," and that's it. It's the end of it. But I've had quite a lot of feedback for various times with the Forgotten Heroines book. So yeah, something I'm glad I did, and it remarkably as well. The previous books I've done, they've normally sold, and they've sold maybe for 6 months and something like this. But we're now 2 years on, and this one is still selling well. I see it recently reprinted, so it's been good from that point of view.
I think the world is just waiting to hear about the northeast of Scotland, Mike. I really do.
People certainly should be. We are, geographically remote in many ways. We don't even have a Grampian TV anymore. So that kind of thing. And it was, that's funny, but the Grampian TV were very good to me. And it is a loss. I know STV are still there, but it's not quite the same. Because when I was doing all these sort of things, I worked a lot in Dundee. I worked at theatre pieces in Dundee Rep. And again, Grampian were very good at that particular time. So we are, in this part of the world, a wee bit the poor relation sometimes of what goes on in the Central Belt as far as media attention is concerned. Yeah,
and I think it's in my own little right. I do hear in Cruden Bay, little Cruden Bay. Many folk in the world came for even Cruden Bay was, but actually we sit here in an incredible amount of history. We've got world famous golf course. We've got Slains Castle, and we've got such a lot historically going on in this area. But we've also got our culture and background, which we're Doric. We don't always speak the broad Doric that they did in the past, but time has moved on, Mike, and we just speak the way that we do because we've had to adapt to modern ways of communicating. But I think that we are still really relevant here, sitting uniquely in Scotland, Mike. And I think it's because we do sit out in a wee limb here in the northeast nook. Folk tend to travel up north, go west.
Yes.
And I think the fact that we jut out to the North Sea is kind of like a featuristic for us. But, I think one of our remits of Doric TV is to bring to the fore what's going on in Aberdeenshire today, who we are, who the interesting people are, Mike. And, it was strange because all these characters that you've written in your book, I hadn't heard of any of them, these ladies, these heroines. I had heard of Lorna Moon because I'd stepped into the library at Strichen one day, and I noticed there was a big feature about Lorna Moon, and I went, wow, I didn't know she existed. But there she was in a little library in Strichen in Aberdeenshire. And I thought, I think she needs to be more than just, featured on a little board in the Strichen Library. And then that's when I read the article, Mike, about the book that you'd written. And I was thinking, wow, there we go. We were very much to the fore in doing things, incredible things in the northeast of Scotland. And Mike, you've been somebody that's picked up on that. And, Mike, I think one of the things that I've always interested me is, why do you think in the northeast that we're quite reticent and shy, and they kind of fear to come out our boxes What do
I
you
think
think?
it's just the style of the people. I think it's always been, you used to speak about people got the tawdry and you would hear them, the sweetie papers rustling, because we are just that style of person. We're not necessarily, we're not like, Southern Italy or something where everybody is very vibrant and very loud, if you like, in some ways. I think in its own way, we're just that, more reserved. I know a lot of people have said that when they've come here, like football players have come in from south of Scotland to come to Aberdeen, a lot of them stayed, and they say that when they come here for a first, they find it a wee bit, people are a wee bit reserved and like that, but they realise that they're sincere. That once they've got a friend here, it's a real friend. It's not somebody like, in certain parts of Scotland, you might, within 2 minutes, you're somebody's best pal. But, that's maybe not necessarily straightforward and truthful. And I think we are that style. I think with some lot of folk would be a wee bit for a start. But I think, I'm proud to be Aberdonian and believe that the people from this part of the world are sincere. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're unique in the way that we speak. We're actually unique in some of the way that we look as well.
Yeah.
I've interviewed quite a lot of elderly people in the past, and fishing, farming, and you can see in the lines of their faces, Mike, they look part of the landscape and the seascape.
Yeah.
And I think now that we're living in a more diverse Aberdeenshire, I think it's good that we remember our roots. It's good that we remember these folk that have made who we are, because who would we be if it wasn't for our forefathers and the folk that drove this area in the past. And to know that there was women in the past from this area who were, and as you say, a male-dominated world, how they had the backbone to step out and do what they did in a very difficult time in history. And I just think I am just so excited that book is there, Mike, and you've brought it. You've written that book, Mike. To sort of end up our interview here, for us, the ordinary kind of folk out there like myself, who's got a sort of idea that maybe would like to write a book or a piece of writing that they would like to bring forward. Mike, what is your ideas or advice to give on people who would like to just do a wee bit of writing and bring it to the fore?
Go for it for a start. Get something you're interested in. Don't I pick up on, I've never gone and thought, I could write about that and it would probably be successful on stage. When I go back a stage, when I did the Mary Slessor, when I wrote the Mary Slessor play, I remember my wife saying to us afterwards, but is somebody got to come and see this, a musical play about a missionary? And we opened for 4 nights at the Lemon Tree in Aberdeen, a big theatre, but that's where we opened. And we sold it out a month in advance. We're completely sold out. And we brought it back later the same year at the Arts Centre and sold it out. And, my enthusiasm for it obviously was shared by others. So you've got to start with something that you're interested in, something that you're keen on, and just get to work. I would say, having spent all these years in it, dinner waste time looking for a publisher. The chances, I've got a friend who's just had his 3rd book published, crime novels. He's the only one. It was he had 41 refusals before he got. So you've got to be enthusiastic. But he made it. I have never done that. So I just self-published. And the easy thing, it's the easiest thing in the world to do. It's even easier now if you would do Kindle, because Amazon will take it, you just type the thing out and send it to Amazon. If you want an actual hard book that you can sell yourself, or you can even give to friends and so on, I have got a printer. I will give you my email address at the end of this. If anybody wants to get in touch, I have a printer who do small scale printing, good quality, glossy covered cover, black and white otherwise, but with photographs, and they will do 50 copies. I normally start off and do 500, and if I do 500, it's costing me a couple of pounds a copy. It's not a lot of money. But even most recently, I just did 100 one of the books again just to keep me going, and it was only about £2.50 delivered to my door. So it's not a big expense. If you've got something there that you want to write, there is no reason why you can't, as long as you appreciate, marketing. I have another friend who's written books, partly set in the Cruden Bay kind of area, called Judy Mackey. And Judy she finds that harder. The actual marketing is the thing to get them sold. And I say that you've got to maybe a wee bit of a brass neck to get in, just knocking doors. And again, of course, with Facebook and everything these days, it is easier. And if you've got a subject that interests people, then like that. But you've got to be enthusiastic. That is number one thing above everything else. If it's a grind, to see, I've written plays over the years, several. If I've got sitting on the computer somewhere because I got halfway through and I got bogged down and I realised it wasn't working. It's got to work.
It's got to work.
You want to get up and say, right, I better come back and finish that today. I can finish that, and then read it back. And if you like it, when you read it back, then it's fine. So it's not a difficult task. We're not in an era where Charles Dickens had a quill and had to write down hundreds and hundreds of pages in ink. Because I'll tell you, if I did that, I would never get it finished, because I find so many mistakes when I'm writing, and I go back and I keep my wife will read it and she'll say to me, "You've used that same word about 20 times in the same page." I write. So you need that. But with a computer these days, it is so simple to go and do it. So no, it's just a matter of, if you think you have a story, or you think there's a story that somebody else might be interested in, make a start. You'll find it'll flow. That's what I find. It'll suddenly be writing, and I'll suddenly go, "Oh, hang on, I've never spoken about that." And you go off at a tangent and you do something. And you will find that you'll get inspiration as you're going on. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike, because I know there's a lot of budding writers, poets, a lot of budding anything out there in Aberdeen. And I think that's a great encouragement, because if you've got something within you and have got a bit of drive, and I think drive and enthusiasm, I think, is two great ingredients that you need just to step out in life and do something, like these heroines of past. How did they get to do what they did? It was enthusiasm and drive, and you're right, Mike, we're in an era now.
Slessor is the prize example of that, because she decided she wanted to become a missionary because she was inspired by David Livingstone. But at that time, the missionary board only took in mainly men, but only from posh houses. And lastly, for the slums at Dundee, they were not interested in, and it hadn't been for her determination, she would never have actually got to that stage. So that you need that drive, I've had folk once or twice come and ask me first, how would I do this? And I knew from day one they had never an intention of it. But I taught them what I thought like this. But you could see them thinking, it sounds like an awful lot of work. And when you start, the first day you start at a page, you think to yourself, if you get right, 200-page book, it's a long way to go. But once you get so much, you'll then suddenly decide to yourself, I'm not giving up now, because I've written that much. I'm not wasting all that. And it's downhill. You get a certain, there's a tipping point, and then you're downhill. And then you kind of wait to get the thing finished. And it's quite enjoyable. I've done, I think, 13 or 14 books or something now. And it's still quite a wee thrill when you get the printer I use in Devon to send you a proof copy. And it's quite fine. You open it up and you get it and you look at it. And you think, that's bonny, and this looks good. I did the doorways, and I did a follow-up to Doorways in Dromorty Revisited, and I got that, and I was so delighted with it. And I left it sitting on my computer desk here, and I had a puppy at that time, a Labrador puppy, who surprisingly has lived to be 4 by now and hasn't been throttled, and she came and ate it the first day I got it. So that wasn't the best of starts to that. But no, it's nice to get a book. It's nice to see that and see your work there, and even just getting into like some Waterstones or something and seeing your book in the shelves and stuff.
Well, what I've found in this venture of Doric TV, and I've interviewed quite a lot of people now, Mike, is that how many talented people that we have got on our doorsteps.
Oh yes,
and thank you, Mike, because that is a great encouragement from somebody, like ourselves. You're in Aberdeen. I'm in the country. Aberdeenshire is quite diverse, really. We've got lots of little nooks and crannies to let, and a growing population. And I just think there's a lot of us sitting at home thinking, oh, I've got a talent, I've got a skill, but drive, determination, and what I think is behind that Doric culture that is behind us.
Yeah.
You can sort of tap into that. Well, wait a minute, what did they do in the past? How did they do it? And that's what kind of spurs me on, is just looking at the characters of the past and thinking, good Lord, we've got a lot of characters here in the here and now. I was just thinking that Aberdeen, it's the 3rd largest city in Scotland.
Yeah.
So there's a huge potential,
yes.
potential for, you know, a lot more talented people to come out and to, you know, to stand up there and think, well, actually, I'm going to bring that forward. So there's a wee plug.
There's a great plug, right? And I'll do my wee plug at the end. So if anybody wants information, it's mikegibb3232@outlook.com. It's as simple as that. And can I just do a wee ad? All the books I write for a thing called the Bianca Animal Shelter, which has got 500 animals in its care at the moment out in Portugal. And in fact, today, out of the Heroines and Heroes books, I'm in the process of sending substantial sum out there. So if anybody wants any of these books, they're $5.99, that one, and the follow-up, Forgotten Heroes, let me know. And all the money goes to the looking after that. If anybody's a cat lover there, they let them know that in the months of May and June, they had 80 kittens in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's great.
So, you know, they've got to look after these. So it's a fantastic place. So I'm very proud to try, you know, raise a wee bit of cash for them on that.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested, mikegibb32@outlook.com. Let me know, and I can help in any way. I can give you the name of the printer and everything. So let us know.
That is super, Mike, because what you do is use your own talent, your own skill, and you turn it out and you help other people. And that's how the world goes round.
I'm lucky to do that. Lucky. I'm fortunate I can do it. So,
Mike.
Good. Okay, Joe, nice to talk to you.
You're one of these modern day heroes, and I'll tell you, we've got a lot more, to come on, people out there. If you feel that you're one of that modern day heroes, just stand up and let's be counted. Okay.
Good. Nice to
Mike,
talk to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much
Bye
indeed, Mike. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.